Hello and welcome. I'm so glad that you are here today with us. I have a wonderful guest who has also become a dear friend, and I'm so excited to share her with you all. Today, I am joined with Dr. Naomi Whittaker, and I kind of feel like she needs no introduction, but for those of you that are new to Dr. Naomi, Dr. Naomi is an OB-GYN. She is board certified and is also certified Creighton Model fertility care instructor and fellowship trained restorative reproductive medical surgeon specializing in NaPro technology and the latest research and evidence-based advancements in natural fertility. She educates millions over at rrmacademy.org, and her Instagram is NaPro Fertility Surgeon. She's also physician lead at UPMC Divine Mercy in Pennsylvania, which provides comprehensive gynecological natural fertility as well as obstetric care to patients on the East Coast. Welcome, Dr. Naomi.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to be here with you.
Me too. Thank you. So I really just want to start by, and your bio is perfect for it, restorative reproductive medicine. This is kind of a term that is being spoken more, or at least in circles that I am in concentric circles with. I feel like there's more, going on at the national scene. People are kind of talking about this more, but I feel like there's not a lot of understanding on what is restorative reproductive medicine or RRM. So let's just start here. What in the world are we talking about when we talk about RRM?
Yeah, we're just talking about good medicine. What is good medicine in the field of reproductive care? So it's talking about gender-specific conditions which disproportionately impact women. And so, what is women's health care? What defines it right now? Well, we don't really understand the female body, so how can we give good quality care? So, what have we done instead? We've overridden the female cyclical pattern with a male model of care per se. I quotes in care because we can clearly define restorative reproductive care as good, working with the body to restore health, versus the current model, which is kind of like care. It's basically saying that just being able to function is good enough, right? So let's suppress the body with birth control, for example. Let's put an embryo in the uterus if you want a pregnancy. But women and couples are not happy with this model. That's the dirty secret, right? This is a very profit-driven model, very quick fix. Patients, doctors alike, I think, are unhappy with this. I think
Right.
doctors really want to heal and restore. I think that's why we entered medicine. And doctors didn't really realize, they wanted to help these women, these couples suffering. But I think a lot of them are probably feeling like they're missing a lot, right, of opportunity. Because infertility, for example, is the most complex culmination of multiple health issues that present as a symptom of infertility. So it's an opportunity to find health issues, to restore health and quality of life, optimizing the preconception time for a healthy pregnancy, which means a healthy baby. So basically, it's understanding reproductive care, specifically under gender differences of physiology. So which disproportionately impact women because we're more complicated. And therefore, the male design is the default state of what women should be, right? In research in healthcare. So we need to be on all the time or off all the time, similar to men, I guess, kind of like it's just like that oversimplified approach to reproductive care, which a man would design. When I talked to my husband about this, just understanding because it's so to really conceptualize kind of the philosophy, the scientific morale for this type for approaching healthcare. It's very complex. It's philosophical. It gets into the science and physiology, and it also has day-to-day impact on what does this mean. So we're talking about this multi-faceted complex issue. So we're talking about cultural implications that impact medical care and politics, technically, right? They all closely. And what is the most taboo political subject? We can all agree it's women's bodies, women's health. And so, unfortunately, whenever you politicize something and you polarize people over a topic, you're going to lead to lack of progress because all you're going to do is fight and it's going to shut down any advancements. So basically, in summary, it's understanding what women are and restoring what that is, which is, what does that center around? Ovulation. Ovulation is the unique aspect of women, the most unique critical aspect of female health. And so understanding that very complicated part of women, which determines her cyclicity, restoring health by understanding ovulation, that's what restorative reproductive medicine is. So basically, it includes anything that's good science. Good science is good medicine, good quality care. So that includes multidisciplinary approach to what women need or what men need as well. But we'll focus on women just for simplicity's sake and because they're more marginalized, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that. I think it's really important to think of it in the historical, philosophical context because otherwise we go to the doctor, we feel unseen, unheard, and we walk out and we're like, but why did this happen this way? It's not a simple answer. It's not because the doctor you just met with is a jerk. Like sometimes it might be, but the
Sure.
vast majority of the time, I feel like I see this all the time with the physicians I'm friends with, the physicians that I know these people are going to that have good hearts, but the only solutions they've been trained to give people are Band-Aid solutions. And so they aren't even able to give what they can. It's a whole systemic problem. It's not just that's too simplified, right? To just say like, oh, it's just the at the doctor's office. That's where the problem starts. It goes so much deeper than that. And I love to, if when RRM's all about ovulation, it doesn't matter if you're ovulating so that you can conceive or if you're ovulating so that you can just feel good. These are things we should be looking at. We should be diving deeper into, regardless of if you're trying to conceive or just trying to ovulate as long as you possibly can in perimenopause or trying to ovulate regularly because that's a marker for health as a teenage girl. This is important, and this is where we are really finding the answers and the solution, right? So, I wanted to ask too, what do you see, or what ways is this changing now as we call out some of these things, that it has been done where the research and the protocols were done largely for like a male body. What is changing now? What are some things that you see happening?
Yeah, I would say first, it's getting out on social media. First, that women are upset. It's not just N of one. It's just not me over here in my house saying, oh, it's just me. I'm frustrated with the side effects of the pill, or I'm frustrated. I go to the doctor and they just keep giving me the same thing, but different labels, basically. So I think first with social media, women finally see that it's not just me. Like, right? Like, so the gaslighting, that's a symptom, right, of the bigger problem is now coming to light. So now we know we are all in it together. We're all frustrated with this broken model. It's a much bigger picture than a doctor, right? They are also victims. We can get into that if you want, but this is a broken model. We have to understand the problem and that the doctors are victims and the patients are victims. And so it's coming out that everyone's unhappy, I think. And so I think it's also coming out where the problems lie, right? So people are like, well, what do I do about it? Well, that's the next step. We can go into that, some ideas, but the number one thing is we need to call out the problem because I think right now everyone acknowledges there's a pain point. I'd say I see videos go viral all the time on how people are very disillusioned about birth control, right? That yes, women have side effects, and yes, those are valid. And you can be annoyed that that's the only thing that women's health encompasses, quote unquote, right? Like women are sick of that only option. There's nothing debatable about that. People are frustrated that they're only given this one size fits all that's clearly failed a lot of people, a large portion of the population. And so in effect of that, I mean, I think women are realizing, wow, they haven't really been included in clinical trials. There's nothing really gender specific. Also, because guess what? If they did do any trials on women, they turn them into men by putting them on the birth control pill, right? They're equivalent of men, right? I'm not saying you turn into a man, but that thing that makes you female, ovulation, is shut down so that you can be tucked in nicely into the study. And oh, that pesky cycle, we should ignore that. Well, that kind of defeats the whole purpose of being a female in a study. So I think, yes, we're at a point where we're all realizing it's not just me. And we're all realizing, well, this isn't really feeling like healthcare. Yes, some people have some benefits, and there are cases where, sure, maybe that's the best thing you have and it worked. But I think as a society, we're seeing that we deserve more options and better quality options. And so I think that's where we are now, trying to figure out where is this problem coming from? It's so big, it's so systemic. I think that's the next thing. And I think people, it's so easy to have a scapegoat, and it's so easy too for the people creating the problem to point the finger and say the problem is someone else. The very people that create it are going to be strategic and use a scapegoat. So it's easy to fall for that when you don't see the bigger picture. So it's really important to see who is behind this. And it is what I think, obviously. This is hard to make black and white, but from what I can see from patterns of practicing medicine, watching the news, speaking in front of congressional briefing, is that this is largely from pharmaceutical companies and health insurance companies who are out for major, major profit, and they have very little holding them back as far as regulations or competition.
Yeah, it's so crazy to stop and see some of those trends and some of those ways that these things are happening. And really, when you stop and think about for-profit healthcare at all, it's kind of a confusing statement to think about for the average person, I think. So what does RRM look like in practice? We said good medicine, but from well, let me kind of zoom back. So I think of like the typical patient journey, right? If we have somebody that is, you know, a little girl that's growing up, she starts cycling, she has some issues with her period. She goes to the doctor and she's having some issues, and they put her on the pill, and it like kind of can set off this trajectory of like later in life when she's having issues, maybe trying to conceive. She's not even going to think twice if there's another medication, another procedure, another, all we really have for you is artificial reproductive technology, right? All we really have for you is let's just put a baby in the womb. And it's almost like it lets us be set up for this trajectory from the very beginning. Versus if somebody is, educating that little girl about her cycle, about her body, about what her cycle is saying, what is the point of ovulation, what is the point of these hormonal shifts, and then she starts to have issues with her cycle. Not only is she not going to accept taking hormonal birth control pill at 13, 14, but she's going to wonder why. And understand that this is something my body's trying to tell me and something I need to dive deeper into. And so then if that same girl, which is probably a little less likely, she's struggling with infertility, right? Because she's listened to her body all of these years and learned how to support it. But if she's going to look for this good medicine, right? These real answers to this symptom of why she's not conceiving. And I'm totally stealing this from my dear friend Katie Bidmar over at Elevate. But this trajectory, how do we help people in practice identify what is this next level of care? What does this feel like as a patient, and what are some things as a doctor that we might be able to identify? Oh, this is somebody that could be an ally for me.
Right. So basically, what is the problem that we could control on our end that they're taking advantage of to be able to profit off of us? And that's ignorance of no fault of our own, ignorance about how the female body works. We're not fertile 24/7. You can't, get pregnant whenever. Obviously, women find that out the hard way, right? And they're devastated when they do, because high school sex ed was wrong. We were taught incorrectly. So and defeating ignorance is really the solution to, empowering ourselves to make decisions that are in our best interest, which is empowerment. So formal cycle instruction and truly understanding your body, your biomarkers, your fertile window will empower you to navigate this. And the sooner women can find that out, the better. So ideally, even before a woman starts to cycle, just very basic biomarkers, right? So she could potentially predict her first period and realize, wow, that is just part of how my body is. Then, she can be educated and guided with a cycle instructor that perhaps her first year or two might be a little bit irregular, and that's okay, you know? And so to be able to guide her through that life, through that part, navigate that part of her life that's difficult. And so perhaps she would avoid needing to be on the pill, just realizing that's just normal physiology in that transitional time. And so the more we understand about our body, the sooner, the more we can prevent more interventions, right? So trying to think about, yeah, so someone said, when should I start charting? I said, before you think you need to, right? Once you think you need it, it's usually too late. And then everyone's frustrated. Well, why didn't I learn this before? That's one of the number one quotes. I was that way. I learned it in medical school on accident. There was a free lunch and I learned it at that session. And I was like, I'm in medical school and they're not teaching me this. I've been through undergrad. I did endocrinology classes. Of course, high school sex ed. I've been very well educated at multiple institutions, and yet I didn't understand the fertile window of my own body, right? And I'm like, I've been robbed. Like every time a woman learns scientific cycle instruction, she feels robbed when it's late. I was in my 20s, almost 10 years into cycling. That's 10 times 12, 120 cycles in. 120 cycles of not knowing what's going on. So that's step one in the revolution of women is to understand your own body. As you understand your own body, the science behind it, you're not going to be sold something that may not be in your best interest. I'm talking about anything, apps too. Apps also take advantage of women, and so your body, your brain is the best tool of knowledge over your body, not an app, not a pill, not a procedure. And so once you have that in your toolkit, you're pretty invincible, I think.
I love that. So if step one is really being able to chart our cycles and understand what's going on there, what's step two? So what if we see some problems, we're having issues, like what now?
Yeah, and so the more you understand your body, the more you will see red flags, and especially if you go with the cycle instructor that is educated, such as a great model teacher. So you too can navigate what's going on and ideally be able to bring that to someone who's professionally trained on another level if there are medical issues, right? The cycle instructor is an expert in what's normal. So if there is something abnormal, she's going to guide you to go to a physician or a medical provider that's an expert in what's abnormal. And they can help you navigate that landscape with labs, for example, um, and take it to the next level to try to figure out, oh, there's a red flag. What could that mean? And so cycle-specific lab testing to help you get to the root of the problem, for example, just hormone issue or PCOS, sometimes endometriosis, which is a little more complicated typically than those other conditions, but really trying to understand the next step, okay, if you're having things that are abnormal, having an expert who understands the basic, they have to also understand what's normal to be able to treat what's abnormal. And so finding someone with a restorative reproductive medicine background, which means they understand menstrual cycle charting, means that they can help guide your treatment plan based on your specific needs.
Beautiful. So what are some other than, I mean, I think like again, ignorance, whether it's usually not willful, but usually it's more of a not realizing that there is more information to get. I was very similar.
Yeah.
Just happened to be required for my marriage prep to learn about my cycle, and I remember walking out of class and being like, holy cow, I had no idea. And my husband saying the same thing, my fiance at the time, but he was like, your body's so cool. And I was like, I know.
That's so sweet.
It's amazing. I had no idea. But so like we start here, right? But what if we don't have that empowering information? Like what hope is there for women that haven't been told this, or it's later in their journey when they discover like cycle tracking and have had usually lots of heartache with gaslighting and different things having happened to them. Like what's your words for them, for someone that's struggling with that right now?
Yeah. I mean, it's not your fault. You didn't cause that. This is national, international issue. I really think, yeah, almost a crisis. Perhaps it is. Perhaps that's related to our infertility crisis across the world, that we're seeing everywhere. I mean, countries may be eliminated like Japan. And so, you're unfortunately, not alone. It's a very common problem now. And there is hope for healing even more complicated diseases. There are experts in understanding what's wrong and being able to correct that. There is hope for healing. Um, First of all. Second of all, your story matters, and sharing your story and using that story, you're turning your pain into purpose is actually more powerful than anything I think I can say as a person who does this, for a living. I think to me, there's nothing more powerful than a testimony of explaining the struggles, because I think the more we can share this as sisters in the world on social media with our friends, with our children, with our nieces, the more we can share that, the more we can say, this is the last generation that's going to feel this way. We will not stand this anymore. And a similar thing happened with La Leche League, where, there was a lot of gaslighting to try to sell formula. And it happened. They wiped out breastfeeding dramatically, even though it's clearly such a natural, supportive process for both mom and baby. And La Leche League was a grassroots movement of mama bears, which is what even infertility warriors are. They are mama bears. That, like, we have arisen. We all in our hearts have some kind of mama bear instinct, whether, it's for you as a teacher or you as a cat mom or whatever. I mean, we all have that in our hearts. And it has been awoken, I think. I really do think so. I think we're on that path of La Leche League. And so I think we need to see movements like that and be inspired and not be afraid. I think as we fight for ourselves, we're fighting for, again, our sisters. So yeah, I think just sharing that story, sharing it far and wide, not, to public if you feel comfortable, or to people, even, anyone that you feel like needs that. You'd be so amazed at just sharing your story and what opportunities will rise, absolutely will come from the pain. Absolutely. The pain will not be in vain.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. It makes me just today, actually, I was nursing my 10-month-old and my 4-year-old was sitting next to me and she goes, "Where does your body put the milk?" And I was like, "Isn't this amazing?" And I just zoomed out with her. Isn't it amazing that a mom's body can grow a person and then make the milk for that person, right? It starts there. It starts in these really simple, beautiful conversations. My 4-year-old's not ready to hear about her cycles, but it
Right.
paves the way for a conversation that can become a part of this cultural shift. And I think even in well-intended circles, there's still some confusion on this very thing. I one time I went out to a cup of coffee with somebody and I was talking to him about a mother-daughter class that I do where I teach young girls like about their cycles and then, mind, body, soul health kind of thing. Let's really deep dive with them. And he was like, "But what do you say to the people that say like we shouldn't teach them about their ovulation so young? We shouldn't teach them until they're ready to like be getting married." And I was like, I was so taken aback. I had never heard that said before. No one had ever asked me that before. And I was unaware of this entire realm of people that actually think that by waiting to give them this information, these girls this information, that we're helping them to take better care of their bodies. And what crazy insanity that is to think that ignorance, that illiteracy is the path forward when really there's no empowerment, there's no way they can know how to protect their body, there's no way that they can learn these other things and know what they deserve and what they should be seeking out if they don't first have that. I do think that, there is this new approach that we're seeing on multiple different levels. And it makes me very excited, especially somebody that's not a medical doctor. But the way that I see more collaboration, more coming together, more, this is your expertise and this is mine, and where can we intersect and give better care? It's so exciting. So, what are some ways that you're seeing that work really well, and maybe some barriers to that working really well from your perspective? Because I have my own, but I want to hear from yours.
Wow, that's such a, oh gosh, there's so many. Okay, I might get lost in this answer again because it's so
I'll
many.
help you.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about stigma. I think so stigma of body literacy, which I think is better than ignorance, right? Body literacy needs to, stigma and the cervical mucus or cervical fluid, that stigma needs to be erased. Stigma that teenagers don't deserve to know what's going on with their body. And again, they should be knowing it before they even start their cycle. Stigma about breastfeeding, like that's what old school, right? Stigma, you couldn't even breastfeed in public. We need to break all that stigma. It's beautiful. Someone's eating. Someone needs to eat in public. It's too bad. I mean, yeah, I've even seen this, even at the doctor's appointment. They were like, "Oh my gosh, you're nursing." I'm like, "Look, this kid needs to eat, okay? I mean, there's nothing shameful. I'm not uncomfortable, okay?" So breaking the stigma, we did that at breastfeeding, or making progress with breastfeeding, and now breaking the stigma of body literacy is going to be step one, I think, of um, getting more awareness that this is a need. As women become more body literate, then they're going to bring that to their doctor more and more. And the doctor's going to be like, oh, I kind of need to know this. If my patient knows more than me, it's going to make them very uncomfortable. And I think that's where the change is going to happen. It's going to be women saying, this is my body. I know how to get care. Like cyclical progesterone, for example, is a very common, easy, beautiful, safe way to treat, I would say, most women's health issues. Progesterone is the life-giving hormone that's anti-inflammatory that's released after ovulation. It's one of the most common deficiencies I see in women, especially with PMS and PCOS, and even endometriosis, actually. All health issues often revolve around progesterone. So I think breaking down barriers will come inherently as we understand more, we speak up for ourselves and for our friends that are going through issues. So again, we just have to understand women's bodies more and demand better. And better research will come as well as we demand that and call out pharmaceutical interests that are running studies. Like, okay, well, that study, they were all on birth control, or they were all on Lupron, or they're all on these suppressive medications, or you assumed IVF is better than natural conception without proving that. There's not evidence of restoring really solid, high volume evidence of IVF being better than treating underlying health issues. Actually, if you really look at the data from an analytical lens, all IVF data, the only way they can improve IVF outcomes is by restoring natural health. And then they throw the embryo in, and then they take the credit, right? When probably if you had just given the body time to conceive naturally by restoring that underlying issue, restoring health, the outcome may have been even better, So it's assuming IVF is a default better state than the natural conception, or assuming birth control is the healthier state rather than ovulation, which is what I was taught in medical school. Those assumptions that underlie research are inherently flawed. All of women's health research, when it is done, or reproductive research, has major inherent flaws. I mean, endometriosis for sure is actually more well understood by the public thanks to advocates. And endometriosis advocates, I'd say, are the cutting edge of showing society how we can advocate for better care. I think they have been the loudest voices in the women's health space, other than menopause, HRT. I would say those two, I would say. And so but endometriosis is a much more complicated condition. So I'm going to focus on them. So the endometriosis advocates have done a very good job in, in breaking down major myths that are still written in stone by ACOG and ASRM and these medical organizations that are actually political organizations now. And they quote very old studies and they quote very bad studies with major flaws, because if you don't understand endometriosis, you can't run a good trial. And then your trial is going to make whatever bias, such as birth control, look better than it is. So it all depends on the question that you're looking to answer and how the study is designed. And then you can really get an outcome that isn't the most helpful to a real person, right? If you have major conflicts of interest, major blinders, and base it all on false information, if you don't even know or you don't even use the right person, like if they're on birth control, for example, it's an inherently flawed study because that is not technically a normal physiological female.
Wow. Okay. I want to go back to something you said.
Okay.
So, medical organizations that are now political organizations. I think that this is probably brand new to a lot of people. Like, I think that a lot of people read things and they're like, oh, but this is endorsed by ACOG or this is endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics or whatever. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about this or where people could go to like learn more about this if they wanted to do their own research?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm trying to expose that on solid data with my page. I don't try to just say, well, they're political because, I'm trying to just show
Yeah.
that like what ACOG is saying is wrong. They say that reproductive medicine doesn't work, for example. They put a whole hit piece without, and it contradicts itself. It says we already, ASRM and ACOG are basically the same organization. So you can lump them together. They're all saying the same thing. They overlap in their uh, misinformation that they're giving. Um, so one common thing that they're saying that's misinformation is that restorative reproductive medicine doesn't work. Or then they'll say we already do restorative reproductive medicine in the same document. So that alone is like, okay, so is evidence-based care or not? And then what does that mean? They contradict themselves in the same document. So that clearly proves that it is political, for example, but it's really hard to,
Yeah.
this is very hard to explain on a post. But so that is denying my patient's real lived experience. When they've undergone 10 years of suffering, doctors not knowing what's going on until let's say they saw me, for example. Like I'm not the only one, but just for example, I'm just going to give that. And then we find stage 4 endo that was missed for many years. We do extensive surgery or whatever, and then they do conceive. Who are they? They don't exist. Their case doesn't matter. That's what they're saying. They're trying to erase them. So, um, that's when that's one example. They're denying so many of my patients' lived experience. And even if, let's say, they weren't, blessed to be able to conceive, they are so happy for what they went through. They are healthier, they have answers, and they often have peace. That's when you know that you're on the right track, is that things are bringing you peace, answers, healing, restoration. When you're going down a path of fear, of potential harm, of high cost and potential increased risk, and that you're not really, yeah, peace. Basically, I think peace is the number one thing I tell my patients when they're deciding, let's say, on surgery. I never make that decision for them. That's a very personal decision. I can say these are things I think I could find. These are things I think I may have to do. These are risk benefits. I can never tell you when or if it's the right time for you. You will know. They will be at peace. Obviously, there's still some fear oftentimes just because of the unknown, typically. But ironically, just like before with cycle charting, we were like, oh, the most common quote we hear is, I wish I learned this sooner. The most common quote I hear before surgery is, I hope you find something. Not, not some, I think that's surprising to most people that haven't been through it. How often do you want your doctor to find a medical issue when they go in for a procedure?
Right.
Overwhelmingly, I don't know, I would guess 80%
Mm.
of women have that sentiment, if not more. I don't do a formal survey, but I've just organically heard that quote so many times. Find something, find an answer to all my pain, either emotional pain or physical pain, and often both.
Oh, that's so good. It's something I talk to people about a lot too when they're struggling with infertility is this journey should be making you feel better. You should feel physically better through this process. Your marriage should be more united. You should have more peace in your marriage as you are trying to conceive. This should not be a business transaction that is getting more and more business-like and less romantic. This should really help draw you together and mind, body, and soul heal yourself, heal what you have going on. And when you start to notice any of those things, not, or someone hurry you, or someone, like especially when they're standing there with expecting you to give them loads of cash, like, and hurry, here's the price tag, and hurry. These are the signs that we need to really second guess, like, why are we doing these things? What's the ultimate point? Because at the end of the day, if you feel better, if your marriage is stronger, even if it wasn't for you to have a baby to carry in your womb, that is a good. And that is what we can seek to restore as well. It's not just about the physical function of your body. And that's something else I think that, and I know that you agree, like we have to be looking at restorative reproductive medicine. When we talk about good medicine, we're not just talking about the mechanics of your body. We're talking about the whole picture of what's going on because that's just as much heavy when you're trying to conceive if you're stressed and anxious and worried and in a hurry as any of the rest of it.
Exactly. It's whole body care, right? Multidisciplinary, mind, body, soul. It's all important with restoring health. Your nervous system is deeply connected to your whole body.
Yeah.
So when you're stressed, the opposite of peace, or you have that spiral, which is a sign that you need to stop any elective treatments. If you are spiraling, you are in a crisis mode, you need emotional support. You are falling and someone needs to help catch you, right? And to bring you that peace. You deserve peace in the moment, even if you don't know what your outcome will be. You can have peace in the moment. That is possible. I know it seems, if you're spiraling, you don't think that's possible.
Yeah.
But it absolutely is, and you're worthy of that. I think that's the most important thing. If you're spiraling, nothing you buy, no program, no procedure will bring you peace. If anything, you throw money, it's going to cause problems, no matter what it is. I don't care if it's holistic or whatever. You will not make a good decision because you're using the different part of your brain that is not rational. The
Mhm.
amygdala, which is fight or flight, it's emotional. Emotional, by definition, is going to make the wrong decisions when you're in fight or flight. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So calming down and getting to that peaceful state, just bonding with people you love. That's one of the best things you can do to bring peace. And then when you get strong again, you get back together, you get back on your feet, you're better than you ever were. You're more ready for pregnancy than you ever were. You're more ready to be a mother than you ever were. You're going to be a better mother for it. So the opposite of peace is anxiety, fear, loss of control, feeling like you're on a hamster wheel. Like all of those things are a sign that you need major support. You could have, complex PTSD from this. That's something completely ignored by our medical model right now. It's causing extra trauma on top of the trauma of infertility and just trauma upon trauma upon trauma. Because if we're not getting to the problem, then we're going to exacerbate it. The same thing happened before we understood PTSD for veterans. I'm reading this book right now, and they were treating either anxiety or depression, and they weren't getting to the root because if you're treating depression and you relive the experiences, you're going to trigger PTSD. But if you get to the root of the problem, which is that they're stuck in their trauma, but they need to see a way out, it's a completely opposite way of talking to people. So we have to
Wow.
look forward to the hope of the future. You're not stuck. No one is stuck where they are. There is so much hope. And so that's real. That is really real. To really have, you have to really believe that. And to believe that, you need support of more than just a body, like you said, more than just a uterus, more than just your ovaries.
I love that. So, my last question for you, what would you say to your fellow physicians that just feel so stuck where they
Yeah. I mean, same thing, right? Like, first of all, you're worthy of peace and joy in your life. If your career is not giving you that fulfillment that you came for, step out for a second and see what would bring you peace. How do you want to give healing? Connect with other people that are finding ways to do so. And so, really think back into before you were consumed by medicine, who you were and what your aspirations were. What was your life? What were your focus? What was your hobbies? Like the connections that you had. Reconnect with your siblings if you separated from them. And really just take a moment, kind of like a midlife crisis or something, and take a moment and just really reevaluate I know you're there for patients. That's why we're all there. And just to really remember that before medicine kind of took the stranglehold over your life, because that is happening to doctors. They really want to help save patients. That's why they're there. They're overworked and they're also in the hamster wheel, right? And so they're like, I'm going to do whatever I can to help within the 15 minutes I have, right? And then I'm behind because I was trying to help the person who maybe had a second trimester loss of a baby, right? In another room. And you don't know that, right? When you're the next person and you're there for something that was really bad for you, but now the doctor's behind and then, then maybe you're there for miscarriage or severe pain, but they don't have equipment to help you, right? So that is very frustrating from a doctor's end too. And so to be able to empathize with them, is important as patients, and really just support each other. And so I really do think there's hope for doctors too, who are able to come join the movement. I welcome anyone reaching out to me so we could brainstorm how to do so. I see a lot of things coming out on social media from doctors starting to speak up. And I'm talking about all disciplines. It doesn't have to be women's health. I'm talking about all of healthcare, um, is in a difficult state right now. And so doctors are in a unique position to either just keep going along, keeping our head down, or, uniting together for what's good for our patients. Because really, I mean, patients speak out, but doctors do have the most power for change. And so I do think it's a responsibility not just to advocate for our patients in our day to day, but our patients as a nation, like a nation of patients. And so I think it's important not to just keep our head down, take care of the patient in front of us, but to think, what about, you know, I don't know, a year from now, what's going to happen with what I see, not just at my hospital, but in the next hospital or the next city over, because what you're seeing is not an isolated event. What you're seeing is that all of healthcare is changing and it's not getting better. So I think it's important to have a call for action for doctors too, to really take a moment. It's again, just like women are like, wait, it's not just me that's like, the pill is just not really what I was sold for it to be. Same with healthcare. Doctors, depending on where they are, if they've been in healthcare for, around a decade, they've seen the change. If they've only been around, for the last few years, I guess post-COVID and pre-COVID, COVID was just a window into what's coming. Okay. It wasn't like COVID is coming. It would just kind of expose the deep problems in our system. And so it depends generationally where you are as to what you see, but it's really important to talk to people that have a little more experience if you're younger, and if you have more experience, to really share how you think things have changed, to be able to advocate to how can we get not only back to where we were, but better. I do have hope if doctors unite, if patients unite, and we do unite together between doctors and patients and not turn against each other and like blame each other. Because I do see that too. I see doctors blaming patients. I see patients blaming doctors on social media. And it's like, no, you're totally, again, scapegoats. It's much bigger than that. It's health, insurance, it's pharma together. They're very close together. Multi-billion dollar industries, I assume. I don't know. More money they know what to do with. Those, we must look bigger than ourselves to be able to see the problem.
Yeah. Wow. So it's so encouraging and hopeful to
It
hear you
is.
speak so openly, because I think that there is a lot that people realize without even being able to articulate, like a discomfort and a dis-ease with the way things are being run, but not quite understanding where is my discomfort coming from, or what is, some people have very specific stories of endo excision surgery that they found nothing, and then somebody
Yeah.
else like yourself went in and found stage 4, right? Like those stories, you're like, that makes sense. But I think the rest of us that don't have that kind of story still can relate to this feeling that we've been woken up to this. And so, gosh, thank you so much for your openness and talking about it, because it is so good to bring things to the light, right? That's part of it.
It is. Yeah, I
Like
mean, it's
bringing the light.
happening, It kind of is just,
Yes.
it does seem kind of dark or whatever, but guess what? It's happening. It's just reality.
Yeah.
and bringing it to the light, we can overcome it. I am hopeful. I do think, again, with social media, it's just amazing the power that we have as individuals. I mean, I'm literally just a person, and I can't imagine just me putting my brain down and people read it. And like I said, I see it like on my profile, 1 million impressions a month. I'm like, how do I do that? Like, I don't know. I'm just one person. I'm telling you, I'm not special. I'm very privileged that I've had such amazing life experience to be able to walk this journey with so many people. Like and I've been able to just get early exposure to the Crane model system before I even went in through my medical training. So then I was like, wait, I just learned about my cycle and how beautiful it is. And then I learned that birth control is better in my med school class, something like oil and water. And so, I'm not, it doesn't take a special person to make that change. I literally just write down sometimes on my notes on Apple on my iPhone, screenshot it and put it as a post because I don't have time. I really don't have much time. I just put that in, and sometimes it sticks. I'm like, I can't believe some of my spur of the moment posts are the most impactful.
Yeah.
It's just being genuine, sharing your story. That's what people want. They want to see that they're not alone. So I don't care if your post ends up with 5 people seeing it. What if that one person, their life has changed? So I highly encourage you just to share, be open, just speak the truth.
Mm.
Speak your truth because it is valid, it's important, and it will make a difference in someone's life eventually. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. That's the moral of this. Yes, it sounds scary, but it's happening. And I do see change happening. We just aren't there yet at that point of that I know the answer. And again, maybe someone else does. I just don't have it right now, but I can tell you what I see is happening. And I have a lot of hope because, like, for example, when we had just genuine stories speak at this congressional briefing, first of all, the room was filled. These are real people sharing their stories. And the senator apparently that hosted it didn't show up. I don't know why. Maybe I'm gonna just guess he was busy. I'm not gonna call him out names. I don't even know who it was. I didn't even know. I assume, or it could have been he thought it was gonna flop. But guess what? Apparently it's a success, right? I hear that's the rumor because they were genuine stories and this fabricated ASRM briefing, anti-RRM, anti-endometriosis excision, anti-hormone support, anti-quality lifestyle support, anti-mental health support, anti just restoring health with PCOS. That just really forced briefing through big pharma fell very flat. They had one patient speaking who had PCOS, and she's like, well, lifestyle didn't work, so I had to do IVF because I can't ovulate. That was her story, is what I hear. I wasn't there, but from people that were there. I mean, to me, we were all like, well, she needed restorative medicine. We're like, she's a perfect case story for restorative medicine. So anyway, like, I mean, just that was the first time I think in history we had mama bears for this topic storm in and advocate for real quality women's health care and couples, husbands and wives, for example, were there. So men were there on the Capitol and babies were there advocating for endometriosis excision en masse and filled the room. And congressional staffers were probably like, I don't know anything about women's health, but this is amazing. I mean, that was just, again, very organic, very grassroots, and we had a rippling impact. So yeah, writing to your senators, state, national, that's important too. Sharing your story everywhere. So, your high impact to people who are actively suffering, but also senators are getting pitched a lot of things, and some of them are bought out with money. But if they see, wait, should I take this financial incentive or should I read these stories and really kind of wait, these are real people? Perhaps your story, just your story, will have that impact. Whatever it is, PCOS, endoexcision, HRT, whatever your story is, or even, I don't know, physiologic birth too, just whatever your passion is, share your story. And maybe you could change one senator and wow, that one senator could maybe impact 5, for example.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Where can people find you more? So Instagram, NaPro fertility surgeon. Um,
Yep. Yeah, I'm on X. I'm on TikTok too. But yeah, NaomiWhittaker.com, rmacademy.org for more education. But yeah, it's all, you can find it all from NaomiWhittaker.com and a link, all that. We have Uterus Allies, which I welcome you join, either message Rita or I to join that. We have both a free group on Instagram and we have our own app that we make projects. We made an RM guide to explain this much better than I did today as far as all the disciplines involved and what that looks like. I highly recommend. We're going to make that guide public. But yeah, we have the free chat. We also have a small fee for the outside of the Instagram app to be able to use that to support this and not be canceled or whatever. And we can do more things within this app. And so it's really been impactful already. Don't underestimate, again, the impact that you can have. Please join us. We welcome you to join us. If this has really impacted you, the best thing you can do is join us with Uterus Allies. The second best is share your story or do both ideally. So whatever you feel called to do, this is going to be ongoing for a while. So don't just let this impact you today, but make this kind of a part of your life moving forward. I really invite you to, because this will impact you, whether you feel it now or later. This impacts all of us. This will impact future generations. So we're happy that you're here with us on this podcast and you made it this far.
Yes, it's so good. And it's so inspiring to link arms with others and not sometimes I think we can feel so isolated in these fights because they are so electronic. And so it feels like this abstract am I a part of an army or am I just me? And that's what Uterus Allies really helps you to see and tangibly feel the people that you're linking arms with and the ways that the cultural shift is happening, and it is strong. So thank you so much, Dr. Naomi. This was incredible.
Hey, thank you. Rita really helped launch and give me support for Uterus Allies. So, I mean, I couldn't, honestly, I, I don't think it would be here without you. So thank you so much for your support when I'm like, I felt that I was on an island and you were like, no, you were like, you're not. And it was just you, but you were so loud. You're like, I
I'm really good
100%
at that.
you were. I'm like, wait, okay, there's one voice.
Oh
You
my
know
gosh,
what?
I love it.
These are the times you never forget, right? That when you were like alone and you thought for sure you were alone and someone just found you in that moment where you felt alone. So,
Oh, oh, praise the Lord. That was him, not me.
oh yeah, it
So go
definitely
be
made me
that for
much better.
somebody else without even realizing.
Exactly. You never knew, right? Like, how do you know? You never know. You just have to put yourself out there and the opportunity will arise. There is something much bigger than us at
Yes.
work.
Yes,
Hmm.
so true.